Tonight, keeping them honest follow-up. We told you last week about the murder of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry. That's Brian right there. He was killed in a gunfight along the Arizona-Mexico border last December. The weapon used to kill him was purchased in the United States, but what's really stunning is that it was intentionally allowed into Mexico by U.S. authorities. See, it was an operation called Fast and Furious, and the idea was to monitor gun trafficking, link them to Mexican drug cartels, and then make arrests in Mexico. But once the sales were made, ATF whistleblowers say that agents had actually no way of knowing where the guns ended up. And unbelievably, their Mexican counterparts, who were supposed to make the arrests, they were never even told about this operation. So a program meant to stop gun smuggling actually put weapons into criminals' hands in Mexico. And there are at least 1,800 other weapons out there, mostly still missing. So far, no one in the U.S. government has admitted they approved this program, and no one has taken responsibility. Now, the acting director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the ATF, Kenneth Melson, is expected to resign in the next day or two. But keeping him honest tonight, he may just be the fall guy. Drew Griffin of the Special Investigations Unit joins us now. Drew, Attorney General Eric Holder was grilled about this program by Congressman Darrell Issa, who's chairman of the House Oversight Committee, back in May. I just want to play some of that for our viewers.
Probably heard about Fast and Furious for the first time over the last few weeks.
Now that you've been briefed on it, the President has said on March 22nd that you didn't authorize it. Did your Deputy Attorney General, James Cole, authorize it?
My guess would be no. Mr. Cole, I don't think was in the. I don't think he was in the department at the time that operation started.
But how about the head of the criminal division,
sure
Lanny Brewer? Did he authorize it?
I'm not sure whether Mr. Brewer authorized it.
Now, no one seems to know who authorized this thing. Border agent Brian Terry, Drew, was murdered back in December of 2010. Considering the ATF is part of the Justice Department, does anyone buy that Holder wasn't aware of the program when Agent Terry was murdered, or even before?
You know, I've been on the phone talking to some of these ATF agents today. I've talked to them over the weekend. It's really hard for them to imagine that Holder wasn't at least briefed about it. This was a major operation, Anderson, and quite frankly, up until the disastrous death of Brian Terry, this they thought was going to be a big hit or a home run for them. They were going to arrest cartel members. That required a lot of approval for overtime just to do the surveillance, wiretaps, surveillance video being done. All of that requires approval up the chain, all the way into the Department of Justice. And, you know, to the boots on the ground, it's unimaginable that high-up people in the Department of Justice, including Holder himself, at least didn't know about it.
So now you have the acting director of the ATF, this guy Kenneth Melson, expected to step down in the next day or two because of this program. I mean, is he just the fall guy?
He seems to be being set up that way. The question, I think, to ask is, for Justice, does this end? Justice is obviously trying to get this behind them as quickly as possible. If they can replace Kenneth Melson, get somebody else in there and try to smooth this over with Congress, they think they can move on with their own internal investigation and maybe come out with something in a few months. But members of Congress say no way. Congressman Darrell Issa, head of the House Oversight Committee, is going to press hard. And we got a statement from Senator Chuck Grassley, the Republican from Iowa, who's been pushing hard on this. And I'll just read it to you. He said, "It'd be a shame if the Justice Department makes Mr. Melson the only fall guy for this disastrous strategy. There's plenty of blame to go around at both the ATF and Justice Department. A resignation by the acting director would be, by no means, the end of our inquiry." Grassley also said he'd be interested in hearing what Melson has to say to him after he is kicked out of justice, as we all believe will happen.
And when President Obama and Eric Holder were asked about the program, they both pointed to an investigation that's being conducted by the Inspector General of the Justice Department. Do we have any idea when the findings of that are going to be released?
We don't. That's a big complaint. The members of Congress think they're being stonewalled. We've gone over this. Why does it take 5-6 months to find out who in your own department approved anything? You know, that should be a decision that you can come back with in 5 minutes. But the stonewalling, according to Congress, continues while ATF and Department of Justice try to fix this.
All right. Drew, appreciate the follow-up. We'll continue to follow it. Coming up, new twist in the Casey Anthony trial.